ACT1, the moment that started it all. Spain, 1990. By 1990, Ayrton Senna had already become a Formula One world champion. But what followed wasn't a title defense. It was domination. At Jerez, Spain, Senna delivered a qualifying performance that was nothing short of mechanical perfection. He set a track record of 1 minute 18.387, beating his own previous time and finishing nearly half a second faster than rival Alain Prost. It wasn't just pole position, it was history. That lap marked his 50th career pole, making Senna the first driver ever to reach such a milestone. And even though he retired from the race due to a radiator issue, Senna's control over qualifying continued. From 162 race entries, he achieved 65 poles, the highest pole ratio in the modern era. Even Michael Schumacher, with nearly 150 more races, never matched that level of one-lap dominance. Act 2, Suzuka, the kingdom and the revenge. Few tracks define a driver's story like Suzuka did for Senna. And in 1990, it gave birth to his most controversial act. Senna had earned pole, but the FIA, without clear explanation, reversed the grid side, putting him on the dirty line. Prost, starting second, now had the clean run to turn one. Senna protested, FIA said no, so he created his own justice. As the lights went out, Prost surged ahead in his Ferrari. But at turn one, Senna launched down the inside. Contact, chaos, both cars out. Senna had won the championship by force. Later, he admitted it was deliberate, a calculated strike. What followed was the now famous interview with Jackie Stewart. If you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. Love it or hate it, that line became eternal. Act 3, from stall to champion, Suzuka, 1988. 2 years earlier, that same circuit told a very different story, the 1988 title decider. Senna stalled at the start, dropping from pole to 14th before the first corner. But what followed became one of the greatest comebacks in racing history. Senna's engine sparked back to life, and he carved through the field with surgical aggression. One by one, he passed cars that didn't expect him in their mirrors. 20 laps later, he was second, with only one rival left, Prost. At over 170 miles per hour, with back markers scattered ahead, Senna dived down the inside of the main straight. He took the lead, he took the race, and with it, his first world championship. Act 4. The victory that broke him. Brazil, 1991. For years, Ayrton Senna had conquered the world, but not his homeland. Despite all his championships and pole positions, one achievement had always slipped away, a win on Brazilian soil. That changed in 1991. Senna took pole in São Paulo with surgical precision. From the moment the lights went out, he dominated, building a gap almost instantly. But then, with just 10 laps to go, his gearbox began to fail. One gear, gone, then another, until only sixth gear remained. He was stuck, forced to wrestle a high-revving F1 car around a twisting, technical track like it was a go-kart with a broken chain. And behind him, Riccardo Patrese was closing. 4 seconds a lap, the win and the dream were slipping away. But then it rained, the clouds opened, and water poured onto the circuit. For others, it was danger. For Senna, it was salvation. With one gear and full commitment, Senna surfed the water and crossed the finish line first. Exhausted, he screamed through the radio, unable to lift his arms. He had finally done it. The crowd, explosive, his body, broken, but his soul, complete. Act 5, defeating the odds. Brazil, 1993. 2 years later, Senna returned home again, but this time in a slower, underpowered McLaren. The dominant Williams cars, led by Prost and Hill, had nearly 2 seconds per lap on him in qualifying. Senna started third. Then came the penalty, a 10-second stop and go for overtaking a back marker. The race should have been over, but São Paulo once again had other plans: rain. As conditions worsened, the advantage swung back to the only man alive who could weaponize water. Senna switched to wets and began to slice through the chaos. Overtaking Damon Hill and dodging the crashes, that consumed the rest of the grid. He crossed the line first against every mathematical probability. The crowd chanted his name, and Senna, for the second time, made Brazil believe in miracles. Act 6, the day he made history, Estoril, 1985. Long before the world called him the Rainmaster, a young Senna stepped into his Lotus at Estoril, Portugal, for only his second race with the team. Qualifying, pole position, race day, a monsoon. As driver after driver slid, spun, and crashed, Senna stayed glued to the asphalt, like his car was floating on instinct. Lap after lap, he extended the gap. In the end, only 10 cars finished, and every single one, except second place, was lapped. That was his first Formula One win, and from that moment on, the rain wasn't an obstacle. It was his territory. HT7, the last victory, the final embrace. Adelaide, 1993, the final race of the season, the final race of an era. Senna stood on pole, in a car that had no right to be there. All season, the Williams team had dominated. They had taken 23 consecutive pole positions. One more, and it would have been a perfect sweep. But Senna ruined perfection. With one flawless lap, he snatched pole position one last time. Race day came, and Senna delivered again. He led most of the Grand Prix, crossing the line first for his 41st and final career victory. But it was what happened after the race that silenced even his fiercest critics. Alain Prost, his old nemesis, had just retired. Years of tension, collisions, accusations, and broken friendships hung in the air. But on the podium, Senna didn't look away. He pulled Prost up beside him, raised his hand, and nodded. A gesture that said everything words never could. Respect, closure, peace. It was the last time they'd ever share a podium, the final chapter of F1's greatest rivalry, ending not with a crash, but with grace. Act 8, the legend that never stopped driving. A few months later, the 1994 season began. Senna had finally joined the dominant Williams team. It should have been the start of a new dynasty. Instead, it was the beginning of the end. The opening races were difficult. The car was unbalanced. Senna retired from the first two Grand Prix. Then came Imola, April 30th, 1994. Qualifying. Roland Ratzenberger crashed. He didn't survive. Senna was shaken, quiet, distant. He refused media appearances, spent the evening in deep thought. Inside his cockpit, he placed a small Austrian flag. He planned to raise it for Ratzenberger the next day, to honor the fallen. But on May 1st, just 7 laps into the race, Senna's car left the racing line. At over 300 kilometers per hour, it struck the concrete wall at Tamburello, the very corner Senna had warned about years earlier. He was pronounced dead, age 34. The world stopped. But from that loss came change. Senna's death became the line Formula One would never cross again. The sport overhauled its safety systems, cars, circuits, and medical response protocols. No driver would die in a Formula One car again for 20 years. And off the track, Senna's light continued. It was later revealed that throughout his career, he had quietly donated over $400 million to children's charities in Brazil. No media, no cameras, just impact. His foundation continues to educate, feed, and empower millions across Brazil today. Outro. When legends become immortal. Ayrton Senna wasn't just the fastest man in the world. He was the most human. He didn't chase fame. He chased perfection. He didn't need enemies. He had expectations. He didn't just race to win. He raced to feel alive and make others feel something too. He could tear a car apart on Saturday and hold a stranger's hand in the middle of a live racetrack on Sunday. No script could ever capture all that he was, because Senna was more than a driver. He was a standard. Final call to action. If this story stirred something in you, it means the legend still drives through us. Share your favorite Ayrton Senna quote, moment, or memory in the comments. Subscribe, because the story of Formula One's greatest souls is far from over. And remember, there is only one Ayrton Senna. There will never be another.